We want to know about them to advance our understanding of Jewish history and our identity. That's why we're here. So while it's maybe a joke and maybe humorous, you'll tell me if this is light when I'm all done. It's a real topic, and it has meaning for us in these days where people seek our roots. I've offered Yiddish here at various times, Women's Havarah during COVID, a 3-week interactive class that the Newmans were in. I'm not sure who else was there from this room. And Susan asked us to teach at the school, RJ and I, and we had a ball. It was a very popular enrichment class for school kids of all ages. Finally, I'd ask you to hold questions. We so much ground to cover. If I let you start talking, you would all tell me about how your family members all spoke Yiddish when they didn't want the children to understand. Yes, anyone? So, true of other immigrant and refugee languages also. I'm totally available in person. I'm a born teacher. Love to talk and work with you on any interest you have in Yiddish. I'm very serious. A teacher without students is like a gardener without a garden. So I mean it.
To Esther. Esther to Esther.
Esther to, yes, thank you.
Yiddish humor.
She knows, yes. Listen to Esther's FEMA announcements and they set the mark. So, Yiddish humor is 2 words. Before we can get to the humor, we have to talk about Yiddish. So I have a bunch of who, what, when, where, why, and hows. This would be a talk in itself. You can read books about this, but I have to whip through this because that's part of how you're going to be allowed to leave the room if you have some sense of this. So Yiddish, it means Jewish, yeah, Jew. A Yid is a Jew. It comes from Judah. Rabbi and people in this room have talked about that. It's not pejorative. It's just what it means, Yiddish. As in, where's Ron? Was machst du Yid? How's a Jew doing? Or was machst du? How you doing? Was herzeg? What do you hear? In fact, was herzeg in Israel turned into manishma, but the origination of the was herzeg was a Yiddish formulation. It's a historical language and culture of 2/3 or 3/4 of the Jewish people. For up to 1,000 years, it goes way, way back. It was the everyday language of Jews that lived in Eastern Europe. How many of you here might trace your roots to that area? Okay, it's the majority, as usual. No Sephardi or Mizrahi.
Not enough.
Here.
Not enough.
Not enough. So we can work on that.
Yiddish humor with Esther Brill on Zoom today.
You're famous.
Okay. Oh, that's Marcia. She's recording. Good. Hi, Marcia. We're having fun. This was, there were 3 languages. The everyday language in this region was Yiddish. So if you were from England or France or Germany, you did not speak Yiddish. But in east of there, it was the everyday language. There was also the language of the host country, which more the women knew to get connected and work at the market. And that might be Polish, Russian, etc. And then the 3rd language was Hebrew, Aramaic, the language that the men used for scholarship and prayer. And so Hebrew was the Lashon Kodesh. Lashon means in Hebrew and Yiddish, tongue, holy. And Yiddish is the Mama Lashon, the mother tongue. And it really means that. Always 3 languages. It's a fusion language of about 80% German, old, high, middle German, whatever. And 20% Hebrew-derived words. So those Hebrew words are in Yiddish. They're just pronounced the Ashkenazi way that I happen to grow up with. So that would be Shabbos rather than Shabbat. It would be Yom Kippur instead of Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah instead of Rosh Hashanah. I believe in Orthodox Temple Shoals. They still use Ashkenazi pronunciation. And Reform and Conservative switched. I remember when we switched. I was an older teen. I can't tell you my age. Okay. When the Hebrew words came into Yiddish, there was an emotional resonance. So if there's a word like in Yiddish, Traum, which is German derived, it means dream. If there's a word like Cholam or Cholam, it's dream that comes from the Hebrew dream, and it has resonance because who dream? Joseph, just anywhere. Start with the Bible. So that's what the Hebrew brings to Yiddish, is that emotional resonance. I'm already up to 100%, but Yiddish has more percentages because locally it picked up Slavic words, regional words, bulbous, kartoffel, depending on where you live. Where was all this? It's called the Pale of Settlement, an area between 1800 and 1900, and some leakage on either side where Jews were allowed to live, permitted to live, required to live by the Tsarist Russian Empire, restrictions. It's a size of 400 plus thousand square miles. So that would be the Pacific Northwest with California and New England and New York all combined. Big, big region. There were 11 million Yiddish speakers there before World War II. We talked about why our own private language, how, when, why did Yiddish come to the United States? Another story, 2 million Jews leaving that region starting in 1880, assassination of the Tsar, blah, 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 to the start of World War I. They vacated their communities. So if you needed a butcher, the butcher had emigrated or was a refugee for not only political, pogrom reasons, violence, danger, but also socioeconomic opportunity for their thriving families because Jews had a high birth rate. What happened after the first generation arrived in America? It's the big A word. Anyone?
Assimilation.
Assimilation. That's how you made it here in America. All of the immigrant and refugee cultures did so. In the US, this is my reading and opinion, it's okay to have a different religion. It's not okay to have a different culture or language. So we became a religion. And I always have had a problem with that. I don't like the Jewish faith. It's a culture, it's a way of life, it's a civilization. But we became a religion. We just worshipped on Saturdays or Friday nights. What happened to Yiddish in Israel? That's a whole nother topic. Initially, it was not compatible with the nation building that had to go on post-1948. Which was Daber Ivri. And then it changed, and there is now Yiddish centers of study and culture in Israel. How is Yiddish written? 2 ways, modified Hebrew alphabet. Marilyn, your family, they used to have the Jewish Daily Forward, and you've seen that. Yiddish has, being Germanic, has lots of prefixes and suffixes. It's very long. Hebrew is very compact. Biggest difference I can think of. And it can be written in transliteration just like our prayer books. So either way is fine. How and where and why it thrives nowadays, checking my time. In a variety of colleges and universities where it's taught, Duolingo, the internet, YouTube, a ton of international Yiddish organizations, cultural education programs. There's been a giant resurgence in the last 40, 50 years. The JCC in Rochester has a Yiddish book center, thanks to Rivka Chapman, who plays in our klezmer band. Ithaca is having a Yiddish Folklife Festival in April. Being Ithaca, which I call Planet Ithaca, they have emphasized the folklife nature of Ithaca. The Jewish Daily Forward continues. It's run by women now, not men. That's the cigar smoking men. It's online only. Yiddish theater has been continuous since 1950. Folks being, they're the ones that produced the Yiddish Fiddler on the Roof. Yiddish klezmer music thrives. Yiddish is trending. That's your who, what, when, where, why. Much to read, many books that you can read, all of which are entertaining. I have to now talk briefly about a modern miracle called the Yiddish Book Center in Amherst, Massachusetts, on the campus of Hampshire College. Anyone been there? I know. Yeah, Bill lives right near there. Yeah. So one man, one person, I always love when one person can change the world, was a graduate student in Canada, had studying Yiddish, had no books, and realized that there are all these books that the Jewish immigrants had in their families here and other places around the world when they left after World War II or before World War II. So he started the movement to collect the book. The collectors were called Sammlers. David Kotak, who's on our Zoom, has a relative who's has a tribute in the Yiddish Book Center as a Sammler. I'll just read you the information. Over this period since 1980, they've collected 1.5 million Yiddish books from around the world, distributed to 600 research libraries in 26 countries, created a digital collection, this is remarkable, of 13,000 books with 5,000 more to digitize. These have been downloaded 5 million times. If any of our group wants a Yiddish resource, we just download and print. And that's how we have all our material. Every book is available electronically. There's shortly to be a Universal Yiddish Library in a collaboration with the National Library of Israel, YIVO in New York, and the New York Public Library, as well as the Yiddish Book Center. There will be 45,000 titles digitized in this book. There have certainly been awards given to essentially, this was after World War II. You couldn't save the people, but sure as hell could save the books, and that was the momentum behind this.
They weren't burned.
Steven Spielberg funded it.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg, yes, gave money so that it could be digitized, exactly. The 75 years before World War II was one of the most, I'm doing a quote, concentrated outpourings of literary creativity in all of Jewish history. And these books are the immediate intellectual antecedent for contemporary Jews of our particular culture. I want to point out that the culture of Yiddish literature was modern in the sense of modern art, modern literature. It was urbane, centers of study in Warsaw and Vilna. So the stereotype of Fiddler on the Roof is wonderful and winning, but it was a lot more sophisticated culture, and we have the books to show it. And time check, we're doing okay. All right. Now, I think with that background of who, what, when, where, and why, we can get to the topic of humor, starting with
We have a clock here. We have a clock here.
thank you. Starting with Jewish humor, and I can, as Jan Kat said when she spoke, I'm horrible at jokes. I'm forced to tell one today. Here it goes. I will summarize it. You may know it. A Jew is shipwrecked on a desert island, and after many years, he's rescued. Anyone? And he's showing the ship's captain everything he's built and everything he does and how he lives. And finally, they come upon a beautiful synagogue, and wonderful. And then as they continue, they come upon a second synagogue. And the ship's captain says to him, "Why 2 synagogues?" And he said, punchline, "The first I pray in every day. The other one, I would never set foot in it." So that sums up a Jewish joke, if you wish. It's one that no goy can understand, and every Jew says they've heard before. So there's your Jewish joke. On your handout, I have two handouts, one of resources and one of that outline of the talk today. I've given you 4 attributes of Jewish humor. This is for you, Herb, that are somewhat intellectual because studies of humor are pretty serious, really. Jews are outsiders, able to see and subvert the mainstream culture from a critical distance. Humor is a self-defense strategy, able to transform or tragedy into laughter, or allow us to tolerate tragedy, as in our current times. A relationship between the wit and verbal dexterity and the playfulness needed to interpret the classical Jewish texts over the centuries. This is very key. All that wordplay, that when we study Talmud, when we study the Zohar, all that turns into humor. Not only, in American culture where Jews are comedians, but in Russia, by the way, before. Jews were comedians there. And finally, the general distrust of authority, willingness to undermine the powerful, pompous, and pious. So that's a call on a humor. That was the best listing I could find for you. Before we go more into examples, I feel obliged. It's Chayav Aleinu, it's incumbent upon us, is that right? To mention 2 well-known Yiddish writers and humorists to some extent. The first one is Shalom Aleichem. If I said to all of you, Shalom Aleichem, you would say back to me, Aleichem Shalom. We can do better. Shalom Aleichem.
Yerushalayim.
So he took as his pen name a greeting. For my generation, that's like howdy doody, right?
Howdy doody, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Don't be fooled by Shalom Aleichem, a very urbane, sophisticated man, just because he needed to make money to support his clan. So he did the speaker circuit and he had to be prolific. He was known as the Yiddish Mark Twain. The story is, of course, that Mark Twain said, and I'm the American Shalom Aleichem. Books about Shalom Aleichem have, or documentaries are called Laughing in the Darkness, Laughter Through Tears. That's a characteristic of Jewish humor. So Rabbi Zohar wanted light. This is the best we can do. I need to give you an example of Shalom Aleichem humor. This is certainly the worst. It's the last line of the story Hodel in the Tevye story. Tevye the Milchiker. The second daughter who goes off to Siberia with her husband Perchek. It's a frame story where Tevye relays his story to Shalom Aleichem, who then shares it with us. Many of his stories are like that. Weißt ihr was, Pani Shalom Aleichem? Do you know what, Mr. Shalom Aleichem? Let's talk about something more cheerful. Was hört sich etwas mit Koyach der Choleria in Odessa? Have you heard any news of the cholera in Odessa? And that's how that story ends. So that's his humor. Might as well just take a quick interlude.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah?
Ganzen Tag wollte ich sich über die Welt, wenn ich mir erreicht habe.
That's the Yiddish version of Fiddler on the Roof, which was produced in 2018 and would have toured had not COVID intervened. Fiddler, here, 1964, the first country it was brought to was Israel. RJ is showing the, is that the Yiddish?
Those the Israeli.
Israeli. 1/4 of the people living in Israel at that time apparently saw that. And then because the lead actor was from Eastern Europe and had delicious Yiddish, they did a Yiddish production which went on several weeks. There was a screenplay, or no, what's the right word, script, And that's the version with modifications that was produced. So that was the 19 Schrager Friedman. So that was the one that was produced. It was very, very popular. How many went to New York and saw it? Yeah.
The Yiddish version?
The Yiddish version, yeah. Yeah. So, second person I want to talk about is, of course, Isaac Bashevis Singer, who won the Nobel Prize in 1978. Quite a character. Don't even know where to start. In his, because he was, among many other things, a womanizer. All his translators were women. And there's stories about that. A brilliant man, brother and sister were also writers. When he won the Nobel Prize, he made several speeches and remarked that though some call Yiddish a dead language, Hebrew was called that for 2,000 years, and look, that's revived. Why not Yiddish? As a humorist, he mined the richness of the Yiddish language with a list of 50 synonyms or descriptor phrases for a poor man. There are a lot of them in Yiddish. And 40 synonyms or descriptor phrases for a crazy person, Meshuggah, et cetera. Something that you might want to pursue in terms of your interests. We are doing well with time. Now, I have to take a little jaunt. You have 16 things on your list. I apologize. I would be not intellectually honest if I didn't rush through some, I'm going to call them cultural touchstones that fed into Jewish humor and Yiddish humor. And these would be areas where you can read, study, but they're topics that bring us a little more enrichment in terms of this language and culture. I'm going to start with the Purim spiel. Enough said, we just had one from the 1700s. Satire, topical. Jewish weddings traditionally featured a badchan, who was a sort of a poet, a sacred clown, along with the klezmer musicians. They would do rhymed couplets. Folk stories through the ages. Most well-known to me are the Wise Men of Helm. It's a real place in Poland. Wise Fools. Wonderful children's stories. They would throw salted fish into the river to breed more salted fish. Think about it. They captured the moon's rays in a barrel. He took a nap in the woods and his shoes pointed in the wrong direction and he went back home instead of the city he was supposed to go to. Folk songs through the ages. We're going to have a sing-along. Your only word is bulbous. It means potatoes in the Slavic side of Yiddish land. And I'm going to go through the day of the week, all right? And it's talking about life.
Point to them, they say bulbous.
Yes, when I point, Sonntag,
Bulbous.
Montag,
Bulbous.
Dienstag und Mittwoch, bulbous.
Bulbous.
Donnerstag und Freitag,
Bulbous.
Shabbos in a novena a bulba, Kogala, Sonntag weiter.
Bulbous.
Excellent, thank you. And if you lived on the other side, it would be kartoffel. So this is about poverty and making the best. So what do you do on Shabbos? You make your bulbus into a kugel. Regional differences in pronunciation. How many of you are kugel people?
I used to be.
Kugel. Anybody Kegel? 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 No, that's Renee Brownstein's. Different region. They say Kegel. So moving along from folk songs, Eastern European superstitions, not exclusive to Jewish people, it was everybody, but in our culture it was, do you know what Kanahara means? Cain means not any, ayin, hara, no evil eye. Anyone ever grow up with?
Poop, poop, poop.
Yeah, Shana Madel, poo, poo, poo. That
My
was,
grandmother.
yeah, that's, you know what you're doing, you're spitting at the evil spirits were everywhere. The first month of, in the crib, those cribs were all decorated with bangles, there's a word for it, talisman or something else, to protect that child, for good reason. Superstition was all they had. So, superstition. Yiddish theater, started in the 1890s in Europe. In the heyday, there were 20 Yiddish theaters in Second Avenue that led into Broadway. And continuously, the National Yiddish Theater Folks Band, I think, is really the oldest continuous theater from 1915. Jews in vaudeville, mixed topic. There were a lot of stereotypes. It was funny. Yiddish entertainment, we're just going to play one example. Do you know what he sang? I made border with my wife. That's Fiva Schminkel. It's a sweet deal. She attends to my every need. When I come home, she doesn't ask any questions. I'm single once again, single via Yingle. I've divorced my wife. I thought about moving out. I looked for a room to lodge, but my wife persuaded me. Why do you need to look for bargains and be cramped in strange rooms and be alone and talk to the walls? Stay here just like before. Be a boarder with me. So like a boarder, I pay her rent. Yiddish newspapers, humor magazines, there were 3,000, not all digitized, or maybe some digitized, it's a big job. Humor magazines, very prevalent. Yiddish radio stations in New York City, very numerous. Small range transmitters, that's what people listen to. The most famous station was WEVD, standing for Eugene V. Debs, because Jewish people were socialists and communists, yeah? There were socialist and communist newspapers in New York. The Bund, big component. Jewish labor in Rochester, big Jewish component. We'll play you, there's a CD RJ can show of the Yiddish Radio Hour.
It's on
that
NPR.
Can find online.
Was.
Some of the vignettes from radio, they're fun. We'll just play you a cut of an advertisement.
Thought so. Hold on. There we go.
Joe en Paul, I saw a party, brother Joe and Paul, dat werd je bully kriegen, brother so, I go, I keep them solid perfect, I couldn't dat hier, kaufen, nor by Joe and Paul.
It means buy. Joe and Paul was a men's clothing store. A suit, a coat, a gabardine, a bargain. Yeah. That's what they advertised, as well as, Manish wine and matzo meal. But that's the nature of the comedy. The Borscht Belt, we're up to number 11. In its heydays, from the 20s to the 60s, there were 500 resorts, 50,000 bungalows, 1,000 rooming houses. Henra Briskin is from that region. So, and talk to her if you would like some information. That was the cradle of American Jewish comedy. The Tumblr encouraged the audience enthusiasm and participation. Jewish comedians, there were some comedians, a team in Eastern Europe, Zigan and Schumacher, who played for 3 decades and survived the war. But those of us of my demographic know growing up in our country and TV, not the TV that you guys last night watched from the 90s, but we watched Danny Kaye, Milton Berle, Jack Benny, Burns and Allen, all Jewish, all Jewish. And it's not until what I find on the internet now, which is other ethnic and demographics in comedy. But back then it was very much a Jewish enterprise. Number 13, book titles, talking about Yiddish. They made the book titles humorous to appeal and to give you a sense, oh, you'd have fun if you learned about Yiddish. So certainly most well-known, The Joys of Yiddish by Leo Rosten. Born to Kvetch, another history about Yiddish and the language and anecdotes. Just Say Nu. By Michael Weiss. So, and finally, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Learning Yiddish. So it's been made very accessible and fun. You all have fun learning it. Contemporarily online, if you want to do something fun on YouTube, there's a comic team from Montreal called Yid Life Crisis. Yid Life Crisis, and they're great little sketches. So it still holds true to today. And we're on to number 15, why Yiddish is considered humorous. In our culture here, our celebratory holidays, one of which we just had, have their observances couched in, described in Yiddish. So for Hanukkah, what are the Yiddish words that describe our Hanukkah pleasures? Hanukkah Gelt, dreidel, and we eat latkes. So that's in this culture, associations that we make. Purim, what are the Yiddish words involved in Purim? Spiel. Hamantashen. Spiel means play, literally play. Hamantashen means, in one interpretation, Haman's pocket or carry bag, because they're folded over. And Grager, yeah. And Ganze Megillah.
Ganze Megillah.
Yeah, Gantz means all in entirety, and the Megillah is the scroll that the rabbi unfurled and read from on Thursday night. But we've chosen to make Megillah being the whole thing.
Die ganze Geschichte.
Yeah, Geschichte, yes, thank you, right. I have to tell you that our rabbi at the JCC came upon our group having a social gathering. I'm speechless. And Sylvia Rose of our temple showed him the text we were reading. And he just read it. It was advanced. It was sophisticated literature. He read it and translated it.
Well,
I am in awe.
it's a bit of an exaggeration, but yes, it was fun to pretend like I know what I'm doing.
But yes.
He read it and translated it. 80% German, 20% Hebrew.
Yeah.
If he can do the Zohar, what's Yiddish, right? So my last number 16 is the Yiddish food list, which I can email you. We shared it with the kids. Kreplach, Knedlach, Knishes. We would give them choices of what they wanted to eat. And they were smart enough to figure out that they just didn't want Kreplach. And they preferred the babka. So now I want to move on to aspects of Yiddish that make it humorous to us. I want you to think about that, to us, because we're edging into politically correct, perhaps. These, again, are my own conclusions, so this is just my call, of what I've gathered. Number 1, Yiddish sayings, and I will share 2 with you. They are books on this. They're all over online. The ones I'm sharing with you are very apt for our times. Von dein Moel in God's Ohren. From your mouth to God's ear. We all know what that means.
Can you say that one again?
Yes. Von dein Moel. There are a lot of cognates. From your mouth, in, which is your preposition. God's possessive. Ohren. Here. The second quotation is Der Mensch tracht und Gott lacht. It rhymes. It's the only one of these, man proposes, God disposes, that has laughter in it. But it's rather ironic, laughter. This comes from Lev Adam Yechashev Darko. V'Adonai yachin sa'ado. A man's heart plans his path and the Lord directs his steps, which is lovely. That's from Proverbs. But der Mensch tracht und Gott lacht. Okay, if you just want to put them both in your Facebook postings every day, that's what I'm reading from my friends' Facebook postings. Number 2, Yiddish curses are very well known. You find them all over online. They're very expressive. So Yiddish is an expressive language. It doesn't prevaricate. It doesn't pull any punches. It's right out there, and it's frank. So some of that is considered humorous because it's unfiltered a bit. So I will read them and we can translate them. Wachsen sollst du wie ein Zwiebel mit dem Kopf entwehrt. Wachsen means you should grow like a zwiebel, an onion with your head in the ground. Yes. Very graphic. Yeah, you see it. Soll herabgeschlungen aschieren. That's an umbrella. Herabgeschlungen aschieren und es soll sich ihm öffnen in euch. You should swallow an umbrella and it should open in your belly. Think about it. Yeah. There's many. This is a business one. Haben soll ein großes Geschäft. He should have a big business. Was man verlangen, soll nicht haben. What people are looking for, he shouldn't. Asking for in the store, he shouldn't have. Und was haben, soll man nicht verlangen. And what he has in his inventory, people shouldn't be asking for. So it's cursing your business in an inventory kind of manner. Sollen rausfallen alle Zehen, aber einer bleibt zu geben sein wenig. All his teeth should, but one should remain to give him a toothache.
That's a good idea.
So you can't make these up, but we did. Yeah, I mean, when you're powerless, you have a vivid imagination. There's a DIY, do-it-yourself Yiddish curse kit. You need the verb in Yiddish sollen, which means should. I want you should. And part A is the body part. So that would be your kop, your kishkis. Sollen, should. And then you need the action verb, which is plotzen, explode. Kriechen, crawl, kochen, Yiddish loves this, boil or cook. So your head should explode, your kishkis should boil. You can make curses that way. So that was number 2, Yiddish curses. Number 3, Yiddish words themselves are expressive, and in our culture, we think of them as funny. And in the original culture, they were, because they feel and sound like what they're trying to express. So I'll just give you a small example. The shlemiel spills the soup. The shlimazel, who doesn't have any luck, the soup falls on him. The shmo cleans up the soup. The schnorrer asks, are you going to eat that? The shmendrik laughs at all of them derisively. The shlub wears the soup on his clothes the next day. So this is called shem reduplication. It actually is a term, and it comes from Yiddish, and we've adapted it in English. As you know, you can think of them fancy schmancy, Joe Schmo, irony, sarcasm, derision, and skepticism. So the words themselves, as we experience them especially. Number 4, what makes Yiddish endemically humorous? One-syllable words. So book for children and adults. I love this book. It's a great gift. It's called Oi Fe Show. It's about a family visit. Oi gewalt, oi ve. You tell me what oi means. It's totally all expressive. I say it a lot at our board meetings. Oi. Nu.
No.
Nu. You can have a whole conversation. No?
Nope. No.
Nah. Yeah. And finally, I can't do this well. Fat. Fat. So, those are splendidly untranslatable, as Debbie Rothman says. Number 5, unique to Yiddish, the attributes of Yinglish. And this is a little bit sensitive because it's okay if you're on the inside, but if you're on the outside, it can feel derogatory. The language, as many languages, has certain characteristics. So there's no W. So instead of W, you say V. There's no TH. So instead of the, you say T. Not uncommon, but it gives an accent. So for example, West End Avenue would be Best End Avenue. Not only the vest, but there's no A, so it becomes avenue, because that's the vowel sounds that they have. There's no as in subway, there's no in most languages. It's an American sound. Subway. And so because of all that, for example, what's that becomes what's that? That's what Yinglish is all about. There are other languages where it's the same thing, Spanglish. So this is not uncommon. The other aspect of Yinglish is that it has to do with prepositions and word order. From this I should know, house by you. That's just a literal word order and use of the same preposition. We can enjoy that if from the right perspective. And finally, a Jewish characteristic, answering a question with a question. How are you? How should I be? And in Yiddish, was machst du? Wie soll ich machen? You tell me how I should be, which Debbie Rothman's mother used to say to her all the time. Finally, a characteristic that's uniquely Yiddish is the diminutive and affectionate endearments that end words. Bobala, mamala.
Estela.
Yeah, it's actually Esther Cat. And Kinderlach, Nasharai. So putting those endings on words has been widely adopted. Now, all of this is to show you how Yiddish has been broadly adapted into American culture, which I think we're sort of aware of. Words have migrated into our common culture. It is 10:22. That's perfect. I want to close with our Yiddish experiences here at Temple Sinai, so to speak. People always have said and tell me Temple Sinai is Hamish. So Hamish means home-like. So the connotation is warm, welcoming, unpretentious, and that's how we share ourselves with the world. People here say Shabbat Shalom. I'll often say Good Shabbos because it's my habit. Anyone? Hag Sameach. Anybody? Good Yontif?
Yontif.
Yontif means Yom Tov. Yontif. So when we're saying Good Yontif, we say Good Day Good. How many of you go to shul as opposed to temple? If you don't go to shul, you definitely know what shul shopping means. They're shul shopping on Friday night, right? Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur, Torah, as opposed to Torah. Mazel Tov. Rabbi Katz liked to say Mazal Tov. Okay, but a Siman Tov, a Mazel Tov. Anyone know that? Yeah. Talis, Talit. Yarmulke, as opposed to kippah. So we do use some of those Yiddishisms. Actual. Anybody daven? Daven is pray. Yeah. Anybody schmooze? Yeah.
That we do.
Yeah, that we do. Schmooze literally means, talk in a casual way, comes right from Yiddish. We certainly nosh, and then nosh is the verb nasharai, like the arai on the end turns it into a noun, chazarai, etc. Do we talk about people who are more from than we are? From, yeah. Now, you do this with our kids on the school. No, but it's still in the culture of the people in this room. We eat melchig, fleischig, treif. Yeah, no treif. Yeah, the Reform movement had a very famous Seder in its history. What was it called? The treif Seder, or they served?
I don't know the name of it.
Yeah, it's in the history of the Reform movement. In our cookbook, Temple Sinai has had several rounds of cookbooks. Monica's here.
The
Yeah,
first one.
shrimp.
Yeah, shrimp and bar mitzvah parties, they would have shrimp cocktails.
Yeah,
Back then, back in the day.
yeah.
That was assimilation.
Yeah.
That was assimilation.
Yeah. So, Rebbitzin is a Yiddish word. Yes. My line for the Rebbitzin that I pulled from somewhere, you may use this. When a Rebbitzin is told you don't look like a Rebbitzin, her reply is, "You should see the rabbi."
There you go.
It's a good one. That's straight from a Rebbitzin. But that's a unique word. There's a couple other words that we use only here in our culture in Yiddish. Yortzeit. There's not really anniversary of my
Yes.
person's death. This is not common, but Aufruf.
Should be more common.
Elise had one. It means calling up literally, and it's before the wedding on Friday evening or whatever. Pushke. Yeah. Some of you call it pushki.
What's that?
Literally all of the E's that you put on, like latki, they're all S. Pushke. And that S sound at the end of the Yiddish, many people growing up, they just put the E sound on it, latki, So they're all S coming from the Yiddish. Now, this is a very important word, and I know Josh has them in town. Mechatanim. And I can't find this in any other language. You have them, the lesson, yeah. It's your in-laws, your spouse's parents. It's your spouse's parents.
It's their in-laws.
No, it's from an in-law to an in-law.
Right.
Yes,
My
yes.
parents' relationship.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
So, mechatanim is plural, mechatanista is the she one, and then, yeah. So, the root in mechatanim is chatan, Hatan and Kala, right? And Hassan is in the Ashkenazi pronunciation, the tough becomes from an S, Hassan, to Hatan. So that's Mechatanim. Hasna is a wedding. So there's a trick to sorting this all out with your T sounds. More words. You will find words all over the internet, lists galore, spelling galore. There was a calendar at the JCC, one of the iterations of the food serving place, and it had Yiddish jokes with punchlines of the Yiddish jokes in transliteration. And every day when you came to that list, someone with a pencil would have crossed out the spelling and respelled every suspect word. So Yiddish spelling is a serious, and Yiddish pronunciation is a serious. Battles have been fought. I'm actually not joking. Okay, some fun words for you. And our time is
Good.
Good. Chutzpah, which has migrated. By the way, the meanings change from the original. The meanings morph. I notice that. That's just part of the natural changes that occur with spoken language. But it means sort of nerve, temerity, etc. Chachka, Bill wanted me to put this one in here. A chachka, actually any word that sounds like that with the ch sound is Slavic origin that migrated into Yiddish. And it's what I have all over my house. Enough said. I mean, some of us, that's why we downsize. Shmata, it's from the rag trade, and that's migrated. Saurus. Saurus comes from tsar, which is straight out Hebrew. It's in the prayer service. Yeah,
What is it?
it's tsar, tzaddik,
Well, tzara is a problem. This is a trouble.
trouble. And in Hebrew, there's serious problems. In Taurus is the kind of problems that we have in Yiddish land. Spielkes. Spielkes. Anyone hear of that one? Literally, it means pins. Pins. It's like you have pins in your. Yeah. Now you might say Spielkies because that's how you heard it growing up. All right, mensch. Mensch literally means a person, literally a man. But when you say menschlich, it means something very specific. And it's used to describe upright behavior, righteous behavior. And I can't think of another word that quite.
Gentleman.
Yeah, a gentleman with that tone.
But isn't it also used for women?
It is, but it's a male, it means man,
Right.
yeah. But there isn't a female equivalent. We could get into what yenta means, I don't want to. So maven, we sometimes use that as a slogan. It comes from the Hebrew mavin, to understand. Maven is someone who knows. But we tend to use it as someone like, oh, she's a challah maven, or
Aficionado. Aficionado.
yeah,
Espresso
aficionado, yeah.
maven.
What is aficionado? That doesn't necessarily mean knowledge.
Yeah. It's someone who knows. Yeah. We're doing well. We're not arguing over the definitions. I'm really relieved. Meshuggah, we all know what that means with endings. Meshuggah, mishugas, just means craziness. Kibbutz. This is one that I think has morphed its meaning. What does kibbutz mean to you all?
Joke around.
Well, no, it's like kind of to involve yourself in something that's not your business.
Oh.
Well, to comment, to,
Lightly tease,
yeah.
poke at, yeah. It's changed a bit. Kvel literally means gush or swell. And so we kvel over specific things, usually our children or family, you just kvel. Kvetch means squeeze or press, and we all kvetch. And there's been sets of earrings, kvel and kvetch, depending on your mood. Schwitz, literally, people would go to the schwitz, and I guess you do at the J. It's sweat. Schlep, I knew I was my day when we introduced Ryan to the word schlep, because it just describes what he does, and he needed to know that word. You have some funny body parts, pipik or pipik, often in a chicken, but it's in us too, and tochas, which I think might come from tachat, but I'm not sure. Does it? Yeah.
It's just Kenani.
Yeah. So some phrases, I know Ron likes this one, hot chinik or haka chinik. Hot means, so a chinik is a tea kettle or pot. So don't rattle like a teapot, like when it's sitting on the oven and the lid and everything is rattling. It just means just you're going on and on. Hot me in China again. Don't hot me or don't hot me. Kochlettel, cooking spoon. So that implies sort of a busybody who's all, or someone stirring up. This is one I got from our singer reading, Viva, and Henra. Oh no, you're not in the Thursday group. For schnoshke. It's like shikker. And it's a word that I got from singer, but for schnoshke, it just sounds like to me that you're really drunk. But you're for schnoshke, you're literally wandering around. That reminded me of farblonje, which was a family word for us kids on car trips. Because we'd wait a while and then Dad in the front seat, we had to say, oh, we're for blonde. It just literally means lost. But it's like you're just blindly charging and wandering around. From Saturday Night Live, verklempt or farklempt. We all know what that means. Clem is sidreit. This is from dreidel. And so is an intensifier, is a prefix. So it just means you're just totally gotten yourself running around in circles yourself. Tsimisht, very similar, just all mixed up. Again, the tsi intensifier. Similarly, angapachket. You start to fix something or decorate something or decorate the cake, and all of a sudden it's all angapachket. Just totally messed up beyond. The one I picked up from recent politics, umgelumpert. And they used, it means awkward. And they used it, the forward, I think, used it to describe when the former presidents at the inauguration were all sitting together having to make conversation. Awkward. So we're getting near the end here. Abigesund and Zeigesund. That is essentially be well. I find it fascinating that since the pandemic, people use that as a common greeting, be well. Abigesund means only, you should only be health, or health is the only thing of importance. And Zeigesund or Zeitgesund means be well. And the fuller expression of that is Seid mir gesund und stark, which is not uncommon in Yiddish groups writing and greeting each other. Seid mir, be for me, gesund, healthy, as in gesundheit, and stark is strong. So it's a parting blessing, stay healthy, strong, and be safe. So it's a very caring blessing. So I'm going to paraphrase Rabbi Tova Spitzer in my conclusion here. I hope that the words I have offered here have led no one astray. That's the 2 Jews, 3 opinions. So you may have many different interpretations, and I may be wrong, and stand corrected. And I'm appreciative of this opportunity to share my explorations with you all today. Thank you. And Yiddish, that would be a Reising Dank, which is a big thank you, a Shenem Dank, which is a pretty thank you, and a Hartzigen Dank, which is a heartfelt Dank. So, and our
Yay.
time is
It's wonderful.
perfect. Oh, well timed.
Can I just,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
I was gonna say about the IE and the Ali, the lefties, everything. I feel like it's such a Rochester thing. I mean, if there's no sense of
I never
heard it.
I never heard it.
Maybe it depends on the neighborhood you live in Rochester, on the street. Well, thank you so much, Esther. This was really, I think, an amazing hour and 15 minutes with you. I think I'm totally left with a taste for more, and also I'm sure that many of us. One comment, I'm assuming that the changing in how we speak the Hebrew from Ashkenazi to Sephardi, changed when it changed in Israel. In the beginning, when they started reviving Hebrew in Israel, some people spoke when they started like reinventing the spoken language 100 years ago. Some schools taught the kids in Ashkenazi and some in Sephardi, and then people would walk in the street and they would not understand one another. Eventually, the Sephardi pronunciation won over, and when that became predominant in Israel, I assume that had eventually influence over here. Yeah.
In 1967, this is Aaron Lansky's book. I highly recommend it. This happened to me one day, and my father was a rabbi. And my father and the cantor just said, well, it's time to do it. And they just changed over.
Yeah. So,
And it happened to him in 1967.
yeah.
And so it was like an amputation,
Right.
dramatic.
And a lot of those words that you were mentioning that are Yiddishisms are actually Hebrewisms in Ashkenazi pronunciation,
Yeah.
which is not, which is like, there's levels to the story, right? And so this is what really amazing.
Many of us still mix them.
Right.
I can't get through a prayer without mixing.
Yeah. Even when Feliza and I were recording our albums, because I grew up in an Orthodox synagogue, and then like even when we recorded the Chadodi, we recorded, listened to the draft of the recording, then realized that I have to rearrange the accent because I wanted it to sound contemporary, the emphasis. So it's like embedded in you. You don't even realize. Lechadodi, right? Likrat kala. How do you make the emphasis? So thank you once again. Just making announcements. Next week, 23rd, very different topic, but very important nonetheless. I will be presenting together with our very own Vicky Finnefrock about the election of the World Zionist Congress. So the elections have already begun. You can vote. You should vote. We'll tell you more about it next week. I'll be giving some examples from my experience of being a Reform rabbi and a Reform Jewish person in Israel, why this is so important, just from my own experience. And Vicky Finnefrock is our liaison to the Arts and the World Zionist Congress. She's helping to make this process. And then the week after, March 30th, Cantor Brown will be teaching here about Passover, because believe it or not, this is going to be our next. Yeah, oy vey. All right, so still yet an exciting month to come. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Sheinem Dank, herzlichen Dank. Oy vey and gefilte fish. All right, take care.
No, nothing. No. My father grew up in the Middle West. My mother was from Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
Dutch country. So
great. That's a real good lecture.
Pennsylvania, Dutch country.
Now that's a lecture.
So nothing.
Just the right amount of
I
knowledge.
mean, they.
You want to learn Yiddish.
The families were always